scheduled holiday, this family caught sight of a wounded fox. They refused to leave the animal behind, and this good deed ended up helping them later. For most of this woman's childhood, she had lived in the countryside. Her family once owned a comfortable home by the village lake, but her parents sold it when they retired. Nevertheless, the beauty of the landscape left a lasting impression on her, and she still thought about that little house on a regular basis. After migrating from the village, the woman had gotten married and started a family in the city. They had one daughter and hoped to have another child in the future. One warm summer, the woman felt the need to escape. She craved the warmth and kindness that simply didn't exist within the city. The woman and her husband agreed to have a week off during the summertime, and she finally knew where she wanted to go. She wanted to return to her childhood village. She was excited to think of showing all of her favorite locations to her husband and daughter. It didn't take long for the family to pack all their things, and soon they were on the road headed towards the countryside. The little girl had never traveled so far before. The hours-long journey was too much for her, and she ended up falling asleep during the car ride. Through the rearview mirror, the woman took a brief look at her daughter, who was snoring lightly in the back seat. The woman looked at the passing scenery through the opened window. There had been a couple of storms within the past week, and the rain had left the fields muddy. After an hour into their journey, they crossed into a wooded area. The woman took a deep sniff, enjoying the fresh smell of pine trees and wet leaves. Suddenly, her husband hit the brakes. The sharp movement jolted the woman out of her daydreams and woke the girl in the back seat. "I think I just saw something," the man whispered. The woman's heartbeat accelerated. She first encouraged him to pull over on the side of the road, and then the couple exited their car. The man walked towards the clump of fur sprawled across the road. It was a fox, and it was wounded. They had not been the ones to hit the animal. Someone else had hit the poor fox and left it to fend for itself. The woman reached for her husband's hand, tears falling from her eyes. It wasn't moving, and they were unsure as to whether the animal was still alive. As the couple took a few more steps towards the animal, they heard a car door open from behind them. Their daughter rushed out towards her parents. She was wide awake now, and there was no way she would be able to fall back asleep. The sight of the injured fox broke her heart, and without a single hesitation, she knelt beside the animal, gathering it into her arms. "We have to help it," the little girl said, her voice stable. At first, her parents debated whether they should intervene with the fox. The creature looked beyond saving, but the girl assured them that she could feel its heartbeat and that it was still alive. The steadfastness in their daughter's voice moved her parents. She may not have grown up in the countryside like they had, but she had a soft spot for animals. They expected nothing less than for her to defend an innocent life. The couple were concerned about how they were going to get help. There was a veterinarian close to where they lived, but the city was almost 2 hours away. The only choice they had was to continue going north towards the woman's childhood village. As far as she knew, the village didn't have a vet. She wasn't even sure if there was a medical doctor. Nevertheless, the fox seemed to be in a bad condition, and there wasn't much time left. The father carried the fox to their car. After they got into their designated seats, they quickly resumed their journey. There were no other cars on the road, and so the father took a risk and drove as quickly as possible. Occasionally, the mother would turn around to assess how the fox was holding up. In the back seat, the young girl had taken out her blanket and wrapped it around the animal. The fox was shaking. It barely had the strength to open its eyes. At one point, it vomited all over the seats. The girl made no complaints. She simply wiped the vomit up with another blanket, hugged the animal, and comforted it with soothing words. It was the most mature that her parents had ever seen her. Finally, the family arrived at the entrance of the village. They rushed out of the car, with the father carrying the fox in his arms. The mother ran towards one of the villagers and asked for a doctor. Although there was no medic in the village, people were able to redirect the family to the local herbalist. Following the directions that the villagers gave them, the family found the door of a wise, old woman. The woman saw the fox and immediately instructed the father to place it on the table. After a few minutes of inspecting the injured animal, the herbalist explained that the fox was a young male and that he had been hurt by a speeding vehicle. The wound was fresh, however, and she would be able to heal him. It would take a couple of days, but then the fox would be fully recovered. The family showered the old woman with their thanks, offering her a significant sum of money as payment for her services. The old woman refused politely, stating clearly that she was following what fate wanted. She further explained that she was clairvoyant and could see a soul bond between the fox and the daughter. Even though the couple were skeptical to believe the old woman's words, they were grateful for her help and left the house quietly without any further comments. In due time, the fox was as good as new, with no indication that he had suffered any major injury. The family was pleased with this outcome, but now they were wondering whether the fox should be released back into the wild. Many would argue that specific animals should remain in the wild, but in this case, it seemed the more merciful choice to let this fox live indoors. Once again, the girl was able to sway her parents. She wanted to keep the fox, anxious at the thought of sending him into the wild and leaving him defenseless. The girl expressed her wishes to her parents, and with only a little bit of hesitation, they accepted the fox as their own. While all her friends owned cats and dogs, this little girl was the proud owner of a fox. This was her first pet, but she demonstrated responsibility. Before they left the village, the old woman gave them herbal medicine for the fox, and the girl applied it regularly. Her parents spent most of their holiday at the village sightseeing, but the little girl chose to play with her fox instead. When the family returned from their break in the countryside, they were surprised to see the fox's ability to adapt to life in the city. They treated their new pet much like they would a dog. Despite being a wild animal, the fox seemed happy to go on morning walks with the family and be taken out to visit the park. One day, the family went to a park to have a picnic. The fox and the girl wandered into the grassy area, even though there were not many people around. Suddenly, the girl let out a heart-stopping scream. Her parents sprinted to their daughter, adrenaline fueling them forwards. At first, they struggled to see her through the long grass, but then the fox's face appeared. The fox led them to where the girl had been, and they almost wept at the sight. At the foot of the girl was a snake. It wasn't moving. Against its green skin were bite marks. When they looked back at the fox, they saw that he had some blood around his mouth. The fox had saved the little girl's life. It was as if saving the life of the fox ultimately saved the life of their child. Since that day, the fox and the girl have been inseparable. It turned out that the herbalist was right all along. The girl and the fox had a special bond that connected them for life. Did you enjoy this story? If so, what did you like most? I would love to hear what you thought of this video, so remember to leave a comment down below. Hit the like and subscribe button for more content like this. I hope to see you again in another video.